Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Hope you're all doing well and keeping safe on this Tuesday. In today's episode, reacting to the FA Cup draw, a transfer update for Fikayo Tomori, and also looking at the Kai Havertz position debate and where he should be playing for Lampard at the moment. Is Lampard playing him in the best position? I not only want to give my opinions on this, looking at recent performances, but also delving into where Kai Havertz finds himself on the pitch and why just looking at the current formation may be a little bit too simplistic in terms of where Kai Havertz actually fits in the pitch for Chelsea and sort of getting into the box, utilising him to the best of his abilities moving forward. So we'll delve into that a lot in today's episode. But before we do, want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also, do me a favour by hitting that like button because it helps out the channel as well. So let's start off with reacting to the FA Cup draw, which took place last night. Due to the unique circumstances this season, they paired the 4th and 5th round draws, so we know who we get in the 4th round, but if we get beyond that, we know the opponents then as well. And the draw, to be fair, was pretty kind to Chelsea, considering Man United and Liverpool face each other in the next round, and I believe a potential game in the 5th round is Everton versus Tottenham. We've been dealt a pretty fair hand in the FA Cup draw, to be honest. So firstly, it's Luton at home in the 4th round, so championship opposition, and a bit of a throwback game for Chelsea fans there in terms of the last time we faced them, I believe was in the FA Cup. And then in the next round, it's away to either Barnsley or Norwich in the 5th round. So all championship opposition in the next 2 rounds if Chelsea make it through, of course, against Luton. We lost to Barnsley in a shock defeat in 2008 in the 6th round. That was a massive shock back then under Avram Grant, if you remember that. And Norwich, we faced Norwich not only, of course, recently in the Premier League, but also in the FA Cup, I believe in 17-18 in the 3rd round, a replay that eventually went to penalties, which Chelsea won. The last time Chelsea faced Norwich in the FA Cup, we went on to win the competition under Antonio Conte. So if we do face them again, if we get through to the 5th round, hopefully that'll be a good omen for the rest of the competition. I think it's a very good draw for Chelsea in terms of Lampard's ability to rotate. We've got the Champions League returning soon. We've got Leicester, Wolves, Spurs coming up. Some important games for Lampard under pressure in the Premier League. So I think it's good that with these games he can rotate quite a bit if he wants to and rest some key players in a key period of the season. But let's talk about Fikayo Tomori. I've spoken a lot about Tomori in the last week. I'm not going to speak too much about him. If you want to hear my sort of extended thoughts about Tomori, the current situation, yesterday's episode of Let's Talk Chelsea covers that, but also last week as well. Just sort of an update, and it seems that AC Milan could be a potential destination for Tomori this month. Firstly, from Fabrizio Romano last night tweeting this, that a new chance for Tomori. AC Milan have contacted Chelsea for the English centre-back. Tomori would accept the destination, but the main target for Milan is still Mohamed Simakan, who's also been linked to Chelsea. Only if the deal will collapse, Tomori would be the option. And Matt Law following up with this in the Telegraph today. AC Milan consider loan move for Chelsea central defender Tomori. AC Milan are among the clubs showing a strong interest in trying to sign Chelsea defender Tomori on loan, but the Italians face competition from England and Spain. It's just interesting because, of course, Rennes, if you remember, of course, we eventually bought Edouard Mendy from them in the summer, was a destination that was linked as well for Fikayo Tomori, and I felt back then it's an interesting move. I'm always excited when English players, young English players, which we're seeing more and more now, go to foreign leagues, whether that be Germany, Italy, Spain. I think it's really good for them. I think about Mount going on loan to Vitesse Arnhem at an earlier age of his career and that really helping to develop him. So maybe it could be the same for Tomori at AC Milan. Let me know your opinions on this potential deal in the comments below. Now let's move on to Kai Havertz because I want to speak about this quite a bit. So firstly, going to read out some quotes from Frank Lampard, who spoke about Havertz after Sunday's performance against Morecambe, which of course Kai Havertz scored, assisted in, sort of started in the game. This is what he had to say in terms of where Havertz is playing at the moment and being an 8 or being a 10 or being on the right, wherever he should be playing. So this is what he had to say. I've heard some people talk about the system with 2 8s as though they have to run in straight lines up and down the pitch. It doesn't have to be that way when you have players with different qualities like Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, Mateo Kovacic and N'Golo Kante. These players play in different ways and arrive between the lines and sometimes into the area inhibited by an orthodox number 10, and that can be more dangerous than a number 10 that just stands there all day. They can be, for me, more dangerous, but those are the things that need time. So interesting quotes by Lampard in terms of speaking about the variety and sort of the flexibility of these players and what they offer. It's very true, Mateo Kovacic, although may not be as prolific or sort of influential in the final third, is a great ball carrier. He's a great player to have when you're up against the press at his best. But recently, I think that the issue Kovacic has consistently had at Chelsea is not only thinking about what he actually offers in the final third, but also just the consistency of his performance, especially this season, and keeping him in the team with Kai Havertz arriving from Leverkusen in the summer. I think about Mason Mount, what he offers, such great energy, but also his ability to switch play, delivery from corners this season. It's been immense. So, and if you think about N'Golo Kante being that deep player, that ball winner, intercepting, the energy he has in midfield too. So Chelsea have very different midfielders that they can play, and that's been the issue that Lampard has had consistently in terms of finding the best balance within there with all these players. And that's not mentioning Billy Gilmour, who I focused on yesterday in Let's Talk Chelsea. But Liam Toomey in The Athletic wrote this big piece about Havertz last week. As you can see here, starting Havertz in a deeper role for Chelsea has hampered his ability, and this goes into sort of the issues so far this season. Havertz adapting to the Premier League, adapting to life at Chelsea, where he is playing. Is he playing in the right position? So this is what Toomey has to say about his current positioning at Chelsea. During his career at Leverkusen, Havertz was largely picked as a number 10 in a 4-2-3-1, a right-sided attacker in a 3-4-2-1, or during the Bundesliga restart last season as a false 9. And these graphs here show you the percentage of time he spent in positions for Chelsea this season in 2021, but also for Leverkusen last season in 1920, and the difference of where he plays. And the majority of the time last season, 57% at Cam, whilst for this season for Chelsea, he has played 35% of the time at Cam. Toomey also backs this up with evidence of going into the attacking decline in metrics, defensive workload up, and pressing increased under Lampard. I think there's a lot to go into. I think obviously we spoke about sort of a new environment, a young player with massive expectation coming into Chelsea. The issues he's had with, of course, testing positive for COVID, that really knocking him back compared to other footballers who've had it. You know, he really struggled with that. And in terms of fitness, in terms of where he was, adapting to a new league, I'm sure mentally, but also physically, that really hurt him. And then getting back into the speed of things with Chelsea, and expected to produce instantly in a team that was doing well, but then instantly a slump in form over December was quite worrying. And Havertz was a key part of those teams, so of course was going to face criticism. I've criticised him on the channel before, but looking sort of detailed into where he plays currently, I think is very interesting, and sort of where we go from here in terms of where Lampard is looking to utilise him on the pitch for Chelsea and where you can get the best out of him. So I wanted to look at where he finds himself in the box, and sort of that for me is a key component of Havertz, at least moving forward. And I also think it very much ties into Timo Werner and getting the best out of Werner. You constantly hear, and we've spoken about it a lot, getting Werner and Havertz, getting the best out of the two for Chelsea this season, and struggling to do that on a consistent basis. Just looking at some heat maps. So this was the heat map for him against Morecambe on Sunday. Yes, we'll get into the Morecambe game, and I know absolutely caveat League 2 opposition compared to the Premier League. It's difficult to judge, but this was his heat map, of course, obviously in a 4-3-3 formation. On the right side he spends the majority of time, but we'll get into how much time he spent in the box, which was very influential for Chelsea on the day. This then goes to Wolves, where he didn't have that much of an impact, quite a poor and sluggish performance, taken off first by Lampard. Also he was taken off first against Everton. It's quite similar in terms of the heat map, a little bit more on the right once again. And then you go to Leeds at home, where he struggled once again. I think was once again the first player taken off, but had a little bit more influence and did get into the box a few more times that night for Chelsea. And then I went all the way back to Burnley, which I think was one of his better performances so far for Chelsea. That 3-0 win all round, that was a really good day for Chelsea in attack. But as you can see, once again, sort of dominating on the right, not spending a lot of time in the box. But then I looked at the game on Sunday and where Havertz spent most of his time whilst Chelsea were in possession, because Chelsea spent a lot of the time on the ball. And I think if you look at it, like Nini FC said very rightly, as a training session for Chelsea in possession, in terms of attack, in terms of the way we construct attack against deep lying defences. So as you can see from this first shot here from the game on Sunday, pretty early on, 2 minutes in possession, further up than both Mount and Gilmour. This looks like more of a 4-2-3-1 than a 4-3-3, drifting to the right, which is where he spends most of his time. And then I wanted to move on to this screenshot here, which shows you that Callum Hudson-Odoi has the ball on the left, and whenever the ball went wide, Havertz would naturally drift inwards into the box alongside Timo Werner, almost looking like there was two forwards up there at times. And he did this over and over again, clearly an intention and clearly an instruction by Frank Lampard on the day. And this is what led to the second goal. In the build-up to that second goal, Kai is much more central here. As you can see, looks like a 4-2-3-1 once again with Mason Mount on the ball. And once again, the ball goes wide against Morecambe's low block, and he instantly moves into the centre of the box, very close to Timo Werner in the middle of the two central Morecambe centre-backs. When the ball gets to Ziyech on the right, Kai drifts to the back post, expecting the ball very intelligently. Timo goes the other way. Kai heads the ball down in the path of Timo for an easy tap-in. So yes, League 2 opposition, but what about when we face a Premier League opponent who sits deep? So I went back versus Burnley on October the 31st first, and one of Chelsea's most dominant attacking performances of the Premier League season. As you can see here, with Tammy inside the box, Kai isn't always tasked with making those runs like he was against Morecambe, but there is fluidity in this. Unlike Morecambe on Sunday, where Chelsea had a lot of the ball basically camped in Morecambe's half in possession, you saw Kai constantly getting into the box over and over again, and not only setting up Timo's goal, but scoring a goal himself late on in the game from a Cesar Azpilicueta cross on the right. But compared to when Timo's on the left, you see that, of course, Tammy's occupying that space. Giroud is a physical presence up there, more of a focal point. So I don't think you need Kai in there as often to really assist Timo Werner. That's my big thing, and I think that moving forward, if Frank starts to play Timo Werner centrally, I think you have to get bodies in and around him. I think it's pretty simple. I think if Chelsea continue to look out wide, especially when defences are quite deep against us, I think you're going to struggle to create chances. But if Kai can get into those positions, and as Lampard stated, just expecting and looking at the formation, expect those two number 8s in Mount and Havertz are just going to run in straight lines. That's not true. Go back and watch the Morecambe game again. Yes, against League 2 opposition, but watch the way that midfield three sort of was quite fluid on the day, not under a lot of pressure, but I'm interested to see how that works against Fulham on Saturday night. If those three play, I want those three to play. And if Kai can have the same influence once again, getting into the box, because that's where you want him, as a second striker. Whether he's a conventional number 10, he needs to get into the box and have influence. That's something Chelsea have lacked for a number of years. And I think especially when you don't have Giroud or Tammy, when you have Giroud or Tammy, for instance, and you can get Mount into the box, sometimes Kai can get into the box as well. I don't think it's as a pressing issue, because we've seen as well from Ziyech balls on the right, you see Ben Chilwell making the overlap and getting into the box as well. I look towards Christian Pulisic's anticipation in the box of getting onto Hakim Ziyech crosses in the future as he plays more alongside Ziyech in the team. But I just think in the sense of Kai Havertz, I touched on this in Let's Talk Chelsea a couple months ago in terms of looking at the stats of his career so far, looking at Leverkusen, how he constantly gets better in the second half of seasons. He done this last year, he done that the year before, and you hope that'll be the case once again under Frank Lampard. I feel that now the team struggling recently, Kai having a good performance on Sunday, I think it's very likely he starts again in the Premier League team. And if Timo's ahead of him, I think it's very important that Kai can get up there and assist him, not only in terms of heading the ball down, but just getting more bodies into the box. If Chelsea continue to look out for wide areas from Hakim Ziyech and Reece James, but also Ben Chilwell on the left, and when games are a little bit more tight and Chelsea have to find creative ways to open up tight defences. Those are my opinions. I think it's a very complex situation, and I think that, Kai's still adapting to the Premier League. He's a very young player, but 21, 22 years old, he's going to struggle to adapt. But I think that, at least for this season, trying to get the best out of Kai, it's not just about where he plays or where he starts. As a number 10, you could have the same issue as a number 8. I saw earlier in the season as a number 10, he still struggled to maybe influence games. I think it's about giving Kai that time, but also about optimising Kai Havertz when he gets into the box, because I think he can be a threat aerially as well. Let me know your opinions on the Kai Havertz situation. Where do you want him to play? Do you agree? Do you disagree with me? But that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again